but Greg Cote, for some reason, felt the need during this break to say to me, the Steelers are going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I think everyone is really falling in love with them having two quarterbacks who aren't Kenny Pickett, who they've seen had success before. And I just keep thinking that they were available cheap for a reason. Like, it doesn't mean that the rest of the league can't be wrong on some of this. But, I mean, the last version of Russell Wilson that you saw was a very constipated offense. But I think most people have the opinion that you have, which is those quarterbacks are going to be better. How do you screw that up? And I present to you Arthur Smith.
That's fair. I'm not going to defend that club, but Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson, I thought was okay last year. 2 years ago, he was awful. Last year, I thought it was a little bit of a comeback year for him. And Justin Fields, I think, is a great contrast. I think the two of them, I can almost envision a two-quarterback system that might actually work, where you play both guys, where both guys might commonly get 10, 15 passes a game because you're going to play them depending on series and score and opponent. I think they're going to get a lot out of both guys this season, and I think it's an interesting mix. And the other thing is, Russell Wilson came cheap only because he was willing to because of all the money still being paid by Denver. And Justin Fields reportedly had four other teams interested in him, but he was lobbying hard behind the scenes to get to Pittsburgh.
But he was had cheap. I understand he had other opportunities. He was had cheap only because the other opportunities weren't a lot better.
Fair.
For Chicago. Like, if somebody was offering a second-round pick, he would not be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Like, my guess is that all other things being close to equal, they sent him where it is that he wanted to go. And if I told you right now, I don't know the answer to the question I'm asking, but if I told you that Russell Wilson wasn't being paid by the Broncos, was just a total free agent, what do you think he's getting where? You think he's getting a lot of money? You believe that after what he's done the last couple of seasons, that that's a big contract that he's getting?
I think I could be wrong. I think he's getting a second-tier Geno Smith type contract. He's not 50, he's not $40 million a year, but I think he's a guy who's getting a $30 million a year deal.
Sean, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I understand that some shine came off the bloom when the Dolphins were scoring 70 off them. But Sean Payton is supposed to know quarterbacks, correct? And they're paying him a ton of money to know quarterbacks. And they made a giant investment in order for him to know quarterbacks. And he got there and promptly ran him out of town. Very quickly, the reports were coming out where you're hearing sources say Sean Payton keeps telling Russell Wilson, hey, stop with the politics stuff and the kissing of babies and concentrate on playing quarterback. He didn't like him from the beginning. And when I give a quarterback a lot of money and then I give a coach a lot of money to be a quarterback trainer, and that coach comes in and immediately runs off the quarterback in a way that makes us all gasp because we can't believe how quickly Denver realized its mistake. You're telling me that you know more about Russell Wilson and his prospects than Sean Payton does. Or you feel better about his prospects than Sean Payton does. Because if he could do what you think he could do in Pittsburgh, my guess is that Sean Payton would have had him doing it in Denver.
When I say I like the combination of those two, it's because in Russell Wilson, you have a guy who's not chronologically over the hill yet. He should have a few more prime seasons, and I think he might. And he's got the proverbial chip on his shoulder yet still to prove that he ain't done yet. And Justin Fields is the opposite. He's the guy who one team gave up on, maybe prematurely, but probably only because they had the top pick and a very good guy to get. So they're discarding Justin Fields, who I think is better than being discarded at his age with his remaining potential. I think as a mix, I think it's a good combination.
If I'm reading between the lines here, what my dad's saying, it sounds like you're saying that the Steelers' quarterback room is the hungriest room in the league.
Yeah, it could be. It could very well be because you have two guys who both think they should start.
Because most quarterbacks are fed well. Most quarterbacks, you don't look at them and you man, this guy really needs to prove something, or this guy. Most quarterbacks are paid the most. You're looking at a room right here where these guys both have to work. I'm a half kidding with the hungry analogy, but I do think that both of these guys have a lot to prove.
Right, they do, and motivation matters. Right, they do still both have a lot to prove for very different reasons at different points in their career. I think the mix is going to be great. The motivation is going to be great. I haven't investigated the rest of the team. They always have a decent running game. They always have a decent defense. They could use a wide receiver in the draft, but I just think they're a team on the rise, and I think the quarterback room is one of the most interesting in the league.
I am profoundly sad right now because what just happened to our show, we're headed to 20 years doing this. And for, I'm going to say 19 and a half of those years, a lot to prove, motivation, hunger, and team on the rise thrown together.
Yeah.
Would have made me vomit all over your face.
But you see what he's saying here.
Yeah.
Who's the least hungry quarterback room?
A lot to prove, motivation, hunger, team on the rise.
You also said Sean Payton knows quarterbacks, and his extent of knowing quarterbacks is he had Drew Brees, and then he didn't, and he retired.
Yeah.
And then he came back. But, like, he won one Super Bowl with Drew Brees, one of the greater quarterbacks in NFL history.
I understand that viewpoint. I would also say to you that the reason that he was hired at that amount of money and no one had an objection to being him being hired as a free agent for that amount of money is because everyone listening to this says that guy is good at making quarterbacks better.
I think you could argue he did in Denver. Russell Wilson did have a better year by the standard that he had set there earlier, and it was because schematically you could see Sean Payton's influence. Now, whether that is Russell Wilson's inability to want to push the ball further downfield like he did earlier in his career, or whether that was coached out of him, I don't know if we'll ever get a sincere answer, especially when you consider Russell Wilson as a part of this data. But you like the fit in Pittsburgh in that they've never had much. And if it comes to hiding a quarterback, not unlike Sean Payton did in Denver, why not hide that quarterback? Russell Wilson seems to be a perfectly fine quarterback to hide.
The problem with what you guys are saying is I believe that all of the analysis of this stems from the place I'm about to state. Because if I gave these two quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, to most of the teams in the league, I think it would be a lukewarm enthusiasm for that situation. But this isn't about the quarterbacks they signed. This is about the quarterbacks who were in that room that all of us know couldn't play. All of us saw enough of all three of them to say those guys aren't good enough, so clearly anybody would be better whose name I've heard.
Really unprofessional stuff surrounding Kenny Pickett. That's my opinion surrounding the not wanting to dress out, not wanting, receiving the news that they were bringing Russell Wilson in poorly. Just like, who are you? What have you accomplished in the pros?
It's weird that he would prefer to go to back up Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia than to back up Russell Wilson, but it would suggest that he's fed up with everything there. Like to me, that's harder to get on the field when you've got a young Jalen Hurts who just signed for giant money.
Has anyone told him who the hell do you think you are?
Right.
Have they tried that? Because who the hell does Kenny Pickett think he is?
Well, you say this, and I would say a star in Pittsburgh because of what he did in college. That's who he thinks he is. He thinks he's an exceptional.
No, I don't doubt that he thinks he's someone.
And he's wrong.
But has someone grabbed him by the shoulders and told him you ain't it yet?
Really? Just like that?
Well, it's just because in the pros he's not.
No.
I don't understand. This could very well be like he's playing his pro games in the same building that he was an exceptional collegiate athlete, but who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, Kenny Pickett you can imagine as a career backup. You can imagine that he's already peaked and he's going to hang around.
But good career backups are good teammate guys.
Yeah, that's true.
And he doesn't appear to be that right now.
Whereas with Justin Fields, he's maybe a backup right now, but he's not. Justin Fields has talent. He's like a Jalen Hurts Jr., in my opinion.
They're
has
also
incentivized
for him to not see the field because it's a conditional draft pick, and if he gets more than half the snaps, I believe it turns into a fourth, which is still pretty good. Like if Justin Fields is getting half your snaps and you're hanging around the way that Mike Tomlin usually does, I really can't spot much of a difference between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields from a production standpoint.
Can we please address what it is that you're asking there? Because I do think it's a great question.
Who's the hungriest quarterback room?
No, that's a terrible question.
Oh.
Who the hell do you think you are? It's just a great question to ask somebody.
Yeah. Who the hell do you think you are? I am.
That's right.
I think Kenny Pickett would. What would you do if you come up all indignant, right? Because it's a great question to ask somebody. You're filled with gall, right? It's a great question. Who the hell do you think you are? And what if Kenny Pickett looked at you and said, Gardner Minshew? I think I'm Gardner Minshew.
Wow, that would be some self-awareness there that I'm begging to see out of Kenny Pickett. No, I think he flips his hair and he says, "I'm Kenny Pickett. I'm the guy that changed the rules in the ACC."
Kenny bleeping Pickett, who I changed the rules in the ACC because I fake slid during a bowl game.
Terrible rule. This is the most inconsistently called rule. Just go back to, all right, Kenny Pickett, you got one on us. Only one person had got one on us.
Who the hell do you think you are? It feels good. Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo. Oh, I put you in charge of the polls again. Does it feel good to say to somebody, who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? I am. I feel like that's a rhetorical question. Like you say that almost as a pejorative, and you really don't expect an answer. You're just making a claim.
That right there from bowling.
Who do you think you are? I am.
Is magical and is I'm him before I'm him and better done.
Who do you think you are? I am.
That's Pete Weber. Greg Cote started writing bowling at the Miami Herald.
did.
Isn't that how you started at the
Yeah.
Miami Herald, writing bowling?
I remember Pete Weber's father, Dick Weber, back in the glory days of bowling when
Big Dick Weber.
Yeah, where Earl Anthony and Pete Roth, what was his Roth's name? The Roth guy.
We don't
You're
know.
asking us?
What
Really?
a great bowler back
Really?
in the 70s. Yeah.
Earl
Really?
Anthony and them boys. I know Don
Yeah.
Carter.
Don
And
Carter
Paula-
was it?
Paula
Don
Carter,
and,
too.
Don and Paula Carter.
Uh-huh.
Paula Sperber Carter. I knew all those people, man. That was my first job at the Herald, writing a Broward bowling column.
What a weird time that must be.
Electric beat.
It really was. I was like 17 years old. I used to sneak in names of my friends among the bowling agate.
What?
Yeah.
I love that.
Who do you think you are?
It's a
Nobody wrote about Dade?
No, Dick Evans did.
Oh, okay.
A Herald legend, Dick Evans.
So many
Big
dicks around
Dick
bowling
Evans.
back then.
Younger brother of Luther Evans, the Herald horse riding.
Who could
horse
I was
rider
going to ask.
in the
Nepotism.
50s.
I thought it sounded
60s.
familiar.
Those are the days, man. Yeah, Edwin Pope. We get Edwin on the phone.
I
He
don't
would
think
know
those were the
Evans
days.
brothers.
I don't think those were the
Yeah, they
days.
were.
Be able to do that.
They were days, no doubt.
The
but
newspaper
days,
the newspaper was king back then, and Luther Evans was covering the king of sports.
Miami
Horse
Herald, he just admitted a journalistic crime that'll get you fired, making up names in
racing.
the
That's true.
paper.
At 17, I did do that a couple of times.